of Rehabilitation Facilities, or MARF, helps the disabled in our state move towards independence and out of institutional settings. Here today is Cindy Clark, President and CEO of Emmaus Homes and Vice President of MARF. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No, this is great. I'm glad you're here in studio and to talk with us today. And I think before we get into MARF, maybe let's set the stage and talk about Emmaus Homes. And could you tell us more about it?
Sure. Well, Emmaus is a 124-year-old organization. We've been providing services to people with disabilities that entire time. Today we provide services to 275 adults with developmental disabilities living in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and we provide those services in about 80 community homes.
Wow. So did it always start off that way, or has it changed? I mean, 100 years is a long time.
Yeah, 100 years is a long time. So the organization actually started more in a community setting that you would think of today as an institution. So we had two large settings, one in Martha's-Ville, Missouri, and one in St. Charles, Missouri. And we've been transitioning folks to smaller community settings, which is considered best practice, and where also clients have better outcomes. And we've been doing that for about the past 7 years.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, when we talk about MARF, this is the Missouri Association of Rehabilitation Facilities.
Right.
Give me a bit more information about MARF, because it's just not something that I personally know much about.
Sure. So we don't often use that acronym because Rehabilitation Facilities isn't very descriptive about services to people with disabilities, but there are national ARFs, if you will, and so we've continued to keep that name for its name recognition because it's well known throughout Missouri. We're made up of about 80 community providers similar to Emmaus who provide all types of supports for people with disabilities. So our services are very individualized and they're very flexible. So we can provide services for 24 hours a day in somebody's home, or if somebody's very independent and they only need a few hours a week, we can also do that. Our services are provided in the home, or they can be provided in the community. We also do employment services. We help people find and maintain jobs, and people with disabilities can be great employees for any employer.
Wow.
We also provide a number of specialized services, including things like nursing and behavior supports.
That's fantastic. We were just looking at some photos that I think are kind of reflective of both Emmaus Homes, the work that Emmaus Homes does, as well as MARF more generally. So when we're talking about how many Missourians are actually sort of receiving services, what numbers are we looking at here?
Sure. Well, about 8,400 individuals are served by MARF providers, but there are actually 37,000 people with disabilities living in the state of Missouri. Most of those folks only receive case management services, many of them. And so that's really just somebody calling in and checking on them maybe once a month to see how they're doing, or they would receive very limited services. Generally, people would like more supports, but they're limited by their funding.
And when you talk about all the sort of partner community providers, how are you able to stay not in touch is the right word, but on the same plane with initiatives and priorities? Is it through just ongoing meetings and communication? But how does that actually work on a statewide level?
Sure. I think that's the benefit of having a statewide organization is that we come together every other month as a group of organizations around the state, and then we're also in touch throughout the off months about issues that may be impacting people regionally, and how we might improve those services to people with disabilities, and also to make sure that the services are consistent statewide.
Well, I want to get into, we have another segment and get into the workforce crisis. Is that something that's pretty timely? But for right now, I'm getting some information for you on the screen. MARF, it's the Missouri Associations of Rehabilitation Facilities. For more information about the work that it does across the state, go to marf.cc. And I realize we don't have Emmaus Homes information, but we can put that up there for the second graphic. But don't go anywhere. We're going to have more with Cindy Clark and MARF right after this break. Please stay with us for more STL Live.